COP27, success or failure? Hi and welcome to today's channel. It's great to see you. Thanks for popping by. Today we're going to be looking at COP27, the outcomes. As you know, I did an introductory video to COP27, how it had been formulated over the past few years, what people had signed up to. Please check that out. If you haven't, it's on the channel, and if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing that. Please remember to like and comment after the video, because it's a really important subject, and I think we really need a bit of a discussion as to what is and what isn't going on. Without further ado, let's check it out. Well, feel free to ignore the headline saying there's a historic deal on the table, because that's where it is and that's where it's going to stay for some time. In my opinion, COP27 has actually been a bit of a washout and a bit of a cop-out. So what is this historic deal? Well, they finally got around to talking about the Loss and Damage Fund. What's that? It's where the developed nations of the world pay into a fund where the undeveloped nations can access the money. Now, I'm using the words undeveloped and developed for a reason, which we'll see in a minute. Undeveloped countries have been asking for this fund for some considerable time, about 30 years since Rio, so you can see the kind of time frame that is being worked to. For 2 weeks of the meeting, both the EU and the United States have been avoiding this whole discussion. Tin can, down the road a bit, ball, long grass, in it goes. So let's take into consideration a few quotes from the representatives that were there. Sherry Rehman, who is the Climate Change Minister for Pakistan, said, and I'm going to read this bit, "This is a down payment on investment in our futures and in climate justice." Hang on a minute, climate justice? What's that about? Well, all the undeveloped countries are boo-hooing about the developed countries, who have developed themselves over many years. Apparently, the developed countries have ruined their piece of pie, and now they want reparation. They want some kind of justice, as if they had a coal-fired power station, they wouldn't be using it. I just find this ridiculous. The UN climate chief said, "This outcome will benefit the most vulnerable around the world, and there's no room for backsliding." He also said that national plans that have been submitted for cutting greenhouse gases by 2030 were nowhere near keeping the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees. Here's my favourite. We must work harder to operationalise the Loss and Damage Fund. So this historic agreement is to operationalise, or let's get it going. And that's not going to happen till COP28. And just going back to the EU and the United States, when they were trying to wriggle out a bit, I was talking about it a minute ago, well, there's no actual agreement as to who will fund it and who can access it. So the EU have said that they want the big emitters to not receive any money. Basically, you could be an undeveloped country emitting large amounts of greenhouse gases, therefore you can't access the fund. So that you can access the fund that you need to stop emitting the greenhouse gases. And this is why I'm using the terms undeveloped and developed rather than rich and poor. So even poor or undeveloped countries, I'm going to go back to undeveloped countries who are big emitters would actually have to pay in rather than get out. And good luck with that money raising. Do you remember, if you've seen my last video on COP27, Copenhagen 2009, all the developed nations decided that they would pay $100 billion into a fund every year. And every year since, they missed it. And do you remember I also said that they're actually going to make this a reality at COP28? I'm not holding my breath, and I suggest that you don't hold yours. Does this mean there's now two funds, the $100 billion a year fund and the Loss and Damage Fund? Or is it just one fund now rolled into one, and it's all going to be sorted out at COP28, which is a year away? Does this sound all healthy for the planet to you? Because it sure as hell doesn't to me. And do you remember the Glasgow Agreement? That one that countries signed up to keep us to no more than 1.5 degree of warming. Well, now all those countries don't want to update their plans on an annual basis, which is what they agreed to in Glasgow. Does this sound healthy to you? It doesn't to me. And do you recall that bit just now where I was talking about backsliding that the UN executive was talking about? There's more backsliding. Does anybody think that something's going to be done? Really? So up comes another phrase, Phasedown. What's Phasedown? Well, apparently Phasedown, and this does amuse me, so I may well laugh again. Phasedown is where countries are going to actually stop using fossil fuels, oil, coal, etc. So let's just take a look at this. India wanted to make this a big part of what COP27 was about, but there's no real plan, nobody really knows what's happening, and it's just come down to phasing out of coal. So nobody knows the when and how this is going to happen, but I'm now going to give you the why. Countries are saying it's going to cost a lot of money. Who's going to pay for it? It's a high price to pay just to get rid of fossil fuels. And don't even start getting anywhere near the fossil fuel producers, the big fossil fuel producers. They are certainly not interested. And in addition, there were far more fossil fuel representatives at this COP version than at previous COP versions. So there appears to be a lot of disappointment about. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the planet was still in the emergency room. A UK negotiator said he was disappointed. Another UN spokesperson said breaching current stated thresholds would expose people to devastating climate impacts. Scientists say that the current policies will track us to a rise of 2.7 degrees. So 2.7 degrees is the new 1.5 degrees. We've moved on. So we better turn to COP28. Now, where's that going to be held? The United Arab Emirates, grown wealthy on fossil fuel production. Masses of oil has made many people millionaires and billionaires. The greenhouse emissions per capita are the highest on the planet. Ever heard of the Climate Action Tracker? Nor had I. Not even when I was doing my first video on COP27. So what is the Climate Action Tracker? It rates, targets and policies of countries to determine likely outcomes of them. And I'm really hoping that you're not going to be surprised that United Arab Emirates policies are highly insufficient. No, hang on, stop, let's be fair. The United Arab Emirates was one of the very few countries to submit updated plans and commitments prior to COP27, which many of the other countries didn't even do. So you know there's a but coming, don't you? There always is. Come on. The United Arab Emirates is on track to increase their global emissions by 30% by increasing production of gas and oil. And that's by 2030, when supposedly their targets show that they're actually going to be reducing their global emissions. And remember that little bit just now where I said that there were more fossil fuel lobbyists at this COP version than any other COP version? Which country do you think, and I would ask you to guess, go on, have a guess, which country do you think had the most? The United Arab Emirates. Welcome to COP28. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that as fascinating as I did, and fingers crossed for COP28, I guess. Please like and comment below, and if you haven't already, as I said earlier, subscribe to the channel and check out the rest of the content, including the other COP27 video that I referred to. I will actually just leave a link just round the screen here so that you can just drop in on that one. Look after yourselves, and I will see you on the next video.